Okay, we're here today with Damilola Aderibigbe, and he's going to read the poem that he's contributed to our anthology, Sign and Breath. It's called The Origin of Fear. Welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Brady. Yes, so I will start by reading The Origin of Fear. The Origin of Fear. There's my favorite senior boy, holding onto the evening's garments. His girlfriend refused to let him step his dirty feet back into her life, so he wet his flaming intestine with a small bottle of insecticide. The matron is squeezing those feet now, and the head nurse pouring all of her knowledge, syrups, capsules into his withering mouth. Then there is me trying to close my eyes. Because of him, the night is scared to arrive.
Wow, what an incredibly powerful poem in such a short lyrical space. And we were talking before the recording about voice in poetry. Tell us a little bit, Damilola, about your perception of of the role of voice in poetry and in this particular poem.
Right. Yeah. I think of voice as as like, for me it's kind of like something central. It's almost as important as, voice encompasses language, and other things. It's almost as important for me as like the structure of of a poem, in the sense that when I think of voice, I think of also I think of the question of power. And this is because I write about I write mostly as, from the point of view of a witness, as this poem showed. I and like, for instance, like most of my poems I write about, like, my mom's experience, my grandma's experience, my aunts, and sometimes my uncles, and people around me. And because I haven't been through what they've been through, so I understand that there's that privilege there that I have. So when I write, I always make sure that I don't write like someone who already knows everything in terms of like voice. I make sure that the speaker is almost, I'm almost learning. My speaker is almost learning about this subject the same time as my reader. So this way, when power comes in, I'm able to kind of like just make sure, like, as I mentioned, sorry, the question of power. So I always, it's very, very important to me that I don't act like I know everything that I'm talking about. Like my speaker knows everything that they're talking about, because it's not their experience, as I've mentioned, although it's like the experience of like someone very close to them. So I'm able to do this with voice. And so most times, I write from the perspective of someone that is very young. I try to inhabit that space, and this way voice takes me there. Like this poem, for example, it takes place in a high school. I mean, I'm no longer in like I in high school, and but because of the fact that it's someone who is attempting suicide, which I had never done in my life, so I don't know much about that, but it's something that I've seen someone, I've witnessed someone go through. So I'm writing from that point of view of a witness, but also writing from like someone who is like younger than this person who is attempting suicide. And how do I go through this? It's through voice that I'm able to go into this space and try to, like, just show my reader that, that this is what is going on, but I don't know much about it because I'm younger than the person who is. And like in like African setting, age is potential power. And I say that because, like, when you are younger than someone, they're automatically more powerful than you are. So, and I think this is important because most of the people I write about are older, but they've gone through like traumatic experiences that I haven't been through. So I think I always need to balance this, and voice really helps me with this.
Wow, I think of what Emerson says, form lives in dread of power. What the
Mm-hmm.
devil will he do next? And I think that's a very interesting point about age and the fact that you're occupying so many different positions. You're now a professor of English, a mature person,
Right.
but you're inhabiting this younger space and
Yes.
actually surrendering some of the power that you have now in order to enter that space.
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, not going so far as to impersonate those who have experienced
Experience these.
these things. And I think of your sense of voice having something to do with also being a kind of bridge
Mm-hmm.
between
Mm-hmm.
the people that you are witnessing, yourself as witness, and now
As
yourself as
now,
poet.
as a poet, of course, yeah, that comes in. I mean, um, I'm able to like, I say this, right, like I say this especially about like poems in my first book. Like I'm able to like, one of the reasons why I wrote all of these all of those poems was because, and it's still because of the fact that these were things that I also that I witnessed people around me go through as a child, this domestic abuse and all that, but I couldn't do anything as a child. And now that as an adult, right, I felt like, the best way, to kind of like try to, do some of these things like that I couldn't do as a child, was to go back into that space and write about it, how I witness it. So no, I'm just kind of amplifying the point that you made, as like now as an adult, as a professor, as someone who has a little more power, even with words, right? Even if I wasn't like a professor. So, I go back there, but it still remains the fact that when I still go back there, I still don't present myself as someone who is like all knowing and who is, looking back to say, well, this is what should have happened or not. No, instead I approach it as that little child. But because of like the privilege of time, right? Because of the privilege of age and the position I'm in right now, I'm able to like look at some of these things and present some of these views better than maybe a child would in many cases. But I still try to make sure that that question of power is still there, and I'm not approaching this from like position of like someone more powerful than the people I'm writing about, because then that can also lead to question of appropriation, which is not like of it.
Okay, you froze there for a moment,
Um,
Damilola, at the end.
okay.
It was just an internet thing, but that's okay. I got most of what you were saying at the end. I was going to ask also about, another aspect of this strange power relationship has to do with you being now in America, in Mississippi. Uh, how does that, how does the fact that you're writing and performing in the United States affect this voice and this relationship?
Mm. Yeah, that's a very good question. Yeah, I mean, like as I mentioned before, now I'm kind of like in a position whereby I can like I have some power, right? And